This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be with Dulio Arellano, founder and owner of Premier Swiss in Addison, Illinois. Welcome back to the show, Dulio.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me again.
This is something I've been looking forward to for a little while. Dulio was one of my favorite interviews, and we did it 4 years ago, a little bit more than 4 years ago, in January of 2020. And I've talked to him a lot over the years. He is one of my gurus for anything Tornos and just, stuff in the business. Sold him a few machines, and I consider him a friend. So I'm really, really happy that we're getting to do this. First, for the people who haven't heard the first interview, just give me a real brief overview of Premier Swiss. What do you make? Just a little overview of the business.
Well, we started in 2018. We started mainly in the hydraulic components industry. And now we are doing a little bit of everything from defense, medical, automotive, general hardware, some aerospace.
A lot more diversified.
Yeah.
Your story is to me is really interesting. You're an immigrant, started your own company at a pretty young age for starting a company. Probably the sweet spot, I think, mid-30s to start a company.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that young, but yeah.
No, I mean, not that young. I've read a book about this kind of thing, and they said people who are slightly older actually are more successful starting businesses than people in their early 20s. We associate these people with as geniuses, but often the people who are the most successful have a little bit more experience in life and working other places. So give me like the 5-minute bio, give or take. You were born in Mexico, and when did you come? When you were 18?
I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 18. And when I came here, I wanted to go to school. In order to go to school, I had to get a job.
How were you able to come into the country?
Well, my dad was in the country since late 70s.
Okay.
In the 80s, there was like an amnesty that allow a lot of immigrants to become residents. So he was in that group of people, but we didn't came here until it was like the 2000,
Okay.
early 2000, yeah. So he continued going back and forth. We lived in Mexico, and he would go back, spend 2-3 months, and then he would come back here and spend 6 months to a year, and then so on and so forth. Early 2000s, when he decided that we were gonna all come here, it wasn't too difficult because by then he already had a house here.
Okay.
He was like already established. He had a job. So coming here was not bad for us. It was just, he made it so easy. I mean, he's the one that sacrificed a lot to get it.
So you all came to where? To Chicago?
We came to Rockford.
Rockford, okay.
Yeah. So I used to live in Rockford for the longest time. I think it was maybe 2 years before I started the business when I moved to the suburbs
of Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay. So you moved to Rockford, and then you wanted to get a job right away. What were you doing?
So my first job was kind of cool, actually. I started working for a company that did prepare the places where they do the expositions for different types of industries. Uh, they did the booths. They set up displays. They did the carpet on the aisles. Rented tables, chairs for trade shows for different industries. I worked there for 2 years, and then after 2 years, I was able to find another job that was more stable, more consistent. Um, I took a job in a company that produce pressure pipes.
Okay.
These pipes are made of steel and concrete mixed with wire. Uh, they're made to withstand a lot of pressure, whether it's internal or external. That's the second job I had, and the last job I had before I got into CNC machining.
And then what got you into CNC machining?
Actually, my brother was the one that looked into it. He was always taking classes. Then when you're involved in the community college, then you start getting the magazine with all the other short-term careers they offer, any other class that they might offer. So he was interested in the CNC career, but never pursue it for some reason. He always tried to push me to pursue it, but he never did. And
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. He had mentioned it to me a couple of times, and at one point he said, "Hey, the classes are going to start, in a month or whatever time it was. You should sign up for them." And I said to him, "Well, I don't even know how to sign up. Why don't you just sign me up and I'll go to take the classes?" So he did, and I attended the classes, and I really liked it. I was like intrigued. I was like,
what was it about the classes that got you really interested?
well, for me, it was something totally new. I have never seen a CNC machine in real life. I have never been involved in anything like it. And the first few days, I have to say, it was boring. It was kind of like I was losing interest, because at first they teach you how the machine operates. It's all theory on the books, some codes, programming. But when you don't know anything, that just goes over your head, and you kind of don't know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Until we had our first day on the shop, and this is like very basic lathes that they had at the community college in Rockford. That we got to use what we had learned, and it was
what kind of lathes, like Haas?
Haas. Yeah, they had.
Yeah.
Because I took both. I took lathes and mills. It wasn't even like programming or anything advanced. It was just set up an operator. They would teach you how to touch tools and do the setup to make some simple turn part with very small features, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first day that we went on the machine, it was a lathe. And for some reason, right from the beginning, that I was taking lathes and mills, I liked the lathe. Like, I was like, yeah, this is fun. I don't know why, but the mill didn't find too like appealing to me at that time.
Interesting.
But, when we got to do the part that we had seen in class, and I saw the machine running and got to practice what I had learned, I was like, I really like this. Like, it's crazy how we can turn this piece of metal into, like, this beautiful, shiny looking part, But it nothing is as easy as it appears. I finished the course and I got my little diploma, CNC machine operator setup. But you go to any shop and they don't seem as excited as I was with my diploma when they see it and you have no experience.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much more behind that than just knowing like the very basics of CNC machining. So pretty quick, I got pretty disappointed that not many companies were willing to give me the opportunity, and if they did, it was very, very low pay.
Do you think if the same thing was going on right now, more people would be interested in hiring an eager person with a certificate like that?
I think it depends where you go, or depends who you ask, because I always think about that, and I always think about that when I interview people for those kind of positions, and it has helped me hire people that come in with no knowledge, and they learn quick. When they find it fascinating, that it's completely different to whatever they have made before. So I believe there are still a lot of companies that do turn you down if you don't have the experience, or if you only have the certificate. And I still believe that the learning curve, it's pretty slow, first of all, on shops where you come in with no experience, because it can be very costly to a shop when you give opportunity to people that have no experience. You have to monitor them and you have to put limits. Because if you let somebody that has no experience come in and experiment or do things on their own, it could be very costly. They could damage the machine. They could do something that could cost a lot of money. So that's one of the first things that I had to learn the hard way, and one of the things that didn't make me change my mind about hiring people like them, but it made me learn how to work out a process where that was not the case.
Mm-hmm. Are there certain machines that are more sensitive to messing them up than others? Like is a Swiss machine or a multi-spindle screw machine more dangerous easier to mess the machine up than say a mill or something?
I don't think so. Because when you hire somebody that doesn't have any experience, there is a lot of things that they could do, non-related to changing anything on the control, that could affect the machine itself. I'll give you an example. My machines have a work light, and a lot of machines have components within the machine inside.
And these are all Tornos Decos, basically, most of them.
Yeah, 95%. So all machines have things inside the machine that are adjustable. It could be cooling lines, it could be a light, it could be any kind of sensor, correct? So somebody that doesn't have experience could potentially try to move one of those things. And if it doesn't have the experience on knowing how the machine moves, you could potentially put one of those things in a place where it could collide or cause.
Yeah.
Those are the typical mistakes that somebody that comes in doesn't know, and he's not going to touch the control because he doesn't know the control. But he could do things like that. He could start trying to move maybe the cooling nozzles, try to move the light, or things that it could cause a crash in the machine for not knowing how the machine functions. I had a guy, which that was the first and probably the last incident that we had before I start putting limits to what they can do. So there is a magnetic light and all Tornos users probably know this light. And it's placed in a specific place, but it's magnetic, so you can remove it, put it on another side. Never to any of my operators occurred to move the light, but at one point, this new guy decided that it wasn't at the right place, so he removed it and he placed it in between X3 and X4 to get a better light to the guide bushing. And now, if you are familiar with Decos, X3 and X4 almost touch each other when it comes to pick up the part. Well, if you have the light in between, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah. So it was a big collision.
Exactly.
Okay. So you came in, and then what kind of shop did you go into?
The first time that I worked for a CNC machine shop, it was a Swiss machine shop in Wisconsin. And
Wisconsin, okay.
when I went for the interview, the job was on the weekends. And for me, it was the only opportunity to get experience without quitting my job. So for a period of time, probably close to a year, I worked 7 days a week.
Were you pretty sure that this was your ticket to a more interesting career by doing the weekend at that time? So you were just, now you had a game plan.
Yeah, because after I took the classes, I was fascinated with the type of work. And then after I took that job on the weekends, I completely made my mind, this is what I want to do. It was just completely different to what I was used to. Like anything that is computerized, I mean, it's gonna do what you tell it. And to me, it was like, well, this is so nice, you know, like this technology is awesome. So I was making very low money per hour, but I liked it. You know, I liked the work. I was like, okay, this is part of the process. I'm gonna have to work through it, and eventually, I'm gonna get to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And at that point, my goal was not to start a shop. Obviously, I'm not gonna go that far, that early, and in the career. My goal was to make sufficient money to like quit my other job and make it my career. And I think that along the way, my goal has changed from one thing to another. After the 1 year that I quit my job and I went full-time CNC machinist, my goal was to become a setup person.
Okay.
You know, not only operate machines and run production, but, you know, set up the machines. And it was everything. It was not just the money. It was just me wanting to learn. And
so that would entail putting the tools in the right place and coming up with the program, basically?
The setup person, the program is already made. The setup person, because there's like 3 basic levels, and you could, you know, there's a fine line, and you can make more if you want to. But you have an operator who runs production and knows how to inspect parts and makes offsets and changes tools. You know, they wear out, you change them, you readjust the part, and you're running production. That's, you know, it's an operator, typical. And then you have a setup person who changed the jobs on the machines. Mostly are repeat jobs that ran before, so they're proven. And then you have the third one, which is a programmer. I think I would say that it's like a complete machinist. When you know how to program it, you already went through the operations, running production. You already went through the setup, and you already went to like programming. So you have all those skills, and now you can program them, you can set up, you can run them. for me, I want it to be a setup, not even a programming. I want it to be a setup because a production. I'm not saying that it's bad, but production is not for everybody. Production is more of less thinking and more like use repeating what you do through the day. Inspect, do your reports. Inspect, do your reports throughout the whole day. And it was part of the process because you can get to a programmer if you don't, do that job as a operator. And it's needed too because you understand the production. But for me, I wanted to have something that would make me think more. I wasn't not interested in like the repeat every day.
So was the setup, was that getting repetitive as well for you, or that was the way to be less repetitive?
It was less repetitive, yeah, because now you're not setting up the same part every day. Every day you're setting up a different part, and when you're a setup person, even though the processes are already proven, parts were already ran, you always run into issues, and you have to troubleshoot those issues.
What's an issue you'd run into?
For example, you set up the part, and the part is not coming out round. You have to figure out why it's not round. A part that is not round is pretty common and pretty easy to troubleshoot for a setup guy. But there is other issues that can like really make you pull your hair. Like shatter, run out, part is not straight, and when you run into those kind of things, that's where you're like started to like gain the experience. It's difficult, but that's where you gain the experience. Like,
see, to me, it just seems like, it. Obviously, I talk to lots of setup people, so but if you were a person that didn't know that much about it, it would seem to me like, okay, the program's correct, the tools are put in right. It's all been calculated right. It's a CNC machine. Like, if everything's right, then why shouldn't it just come out right the right time, the first time? I could see on a CAM machine where you're, but if the machine is in great shape, well maintained, and the people know what they're doing, are there a lot less things that go wrong? Less troubleshooting?
It's less, because if you already have a proven process, you don't have to think about the program itself. But there is other variables. Like, for example, you're not machining the same material every time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not buying it from the same source every time, maybe. You don't know if there was at one point damage to any of the tools that you were using.
Yeah. Wear and tear.
Yeah. Or simply somebody damaged a tool and didn't realize it was damaged and put it back to where the other tools are usable. And when you try to use it, well, it's not going to work anymore. Materials are sometimes not made the same way.
I can see that.
Because just like anything else, materials have tolerances. All the components of the material, they have a deviation. If you get it on the one side, it's going to machine one way. If you get it on the other side of the spectrum, it's going to machine a different way. So it's all sorts of variables.
And no matter how expensive, high tech, the best of the best, you're always at this point with this. You're gonna have to troubleshoot and deal with the part to make it right.
You can get to a point where it's like less issues, less variables if you design a process where your material is coming from the same vendor, from the same mill, with the same specs, and it's always ground and polished. And but everything has a cost. That's going to cost you more. Having the material ground and polished is going to cost you. If you buy from the same source, same mill, it doesn't mean you're going to get the best price on that type of material. So when you are,
you have to weigh that, I guess.
Yeah, you have to weigh it out. Okay, how critical is that I get this type of material for this part? And it's something that you have to decide when you are providing pricing estimates to the customer, because at that point is where you decide which material you're going to use. If you do it later on, then it's going to eat your profits, because you're not using the price of high quality steel to do the price of the part. So if you do it after, now it's going to cost you. And sometimes you have to do that, because sometimes it costs you more if you try to run low quality materials.
Because it's going to cost more time and labor and, Interesting. Okay. So back to the story. You're finally learning. You've gone up the totem pole. You're a setup person. And then I'd say a bit of serendipity occurred in there. Some you're a good networker, shall we say?
After I worked for that company 3 years, I had decided to move to another company that would give me an opportunity to be a setup person.
Okay.
But it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to leave, and I was happy at the company and I tried to stay at the company, but there is a lot of times many different reasons why you can move up. It's not only that the company is bad, it's not only that the company doesn't want to give you the opportunity. You cannot have all setup people. It has to be a balance. And I didn't understand this before, but I do now. Setup people are more highly paid people. And if you have all setup people or all programming people, well, you are overpaying people to run machines. So it kind of has to be a balance. You have to have operators that just run production. You have to have a certain amount of setup people to keep up with the setups that come through production, and a number of programmers to keep up with the programming of new parts and prototypes.
There's a ceiling for how high you could go.
And how fast. So it's kind of up to you to decide, do I want to wait or do I want to make a move and try to reach that point faster?
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily go well. I mean, you could end up in a worse company where they treat you bad, or you could end up in a better company and they gives you the opportunity. So it's kind of a gamble.
So you took the gamble.
I did.
Okay.
And the first company I worked for after I quit that job was not where I wanted. I got hired as a setup person. Never did a setup in that company. I ran production, and I had signed a contract to that company for a year, and I stayed a year and I left.
You couldn't quit?
No, I could, but you have to give the chance to the shop to, like, okay, I'm going to give you some time. I don't want to be jumping from job to job. After a year, nothing had changed. So it was not what I wanted it to be. It was not what it was promised. So I decided to move again.
Okay.
So I was there for a year, and then I was hired in a company in St. Charles.
St. Charles, Illinois. Okay.
Mhm.
Another suburb of Chicago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I took that job, and it was completely like a 180 change from where I was at. Like, I was really happy with the job. It had really good benefits. I had really good people. They had really smart people. The environment was different. It was not micromanaged, um, and it gave you the opportunities to learn. And I couldn't ask for more.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a lot at the company. It gave me the freedom to learn a lot, and I think not only I benefit from it because I think the company benefit from it because I did a lot of good things for them. Um, and after 3 years working there, I was not looking to move out, but I was kind of getting bored. I was kind of like, I want the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing, I didn't look for it. It kind of found me. Um, I think it was an IMTS show. I got to meet somebody at Tornos at IMTS, and that somebody happened to be the president back then in Tornos, U.S.
How did you get to meet him? You were a setup person at a shop. Did you just go and visit the Tornos booth because it seemed interesting?
Yeah, I went to see all the Swiss companies.
Because you had been running what? What kind of machines?
At the first shop, they had Hanwas and Stars and maybe one Tornos, but I never got my hands on a Tornos. On the second shop, they had Stars,
Okay.
100% Stars. Actually, they had Decos as well, but I never touched the Decos. They had two Deco 10s.
Okay.
And the third shop in St. Charles, they had Citizens. Um,
All right. So you were exposed to all the main ones.
Pretty much.
Is that why you went and visited Tornos? Because you hadn't really touched them?
By the time I worked at the shop that had Citizens, and I had known about other brands that make Swiss machines, I was interested in seeing them all to see what was the differences, how they look, and that's how I ended up going to the booth of Tornos. And it was a coincidence because I just walked there, and the president of Tornos happened to be next to the machine that I was looking at. We made a small talk.
What machine was it? The ST?
I believe it was the ST26, what they were showing at the show. And I really didn't know much about it. I didn't know anything about Tornos. I was just fascinated looking at their machines, and just like any other company. It was a quick, small talk conversation, and he gave me his card. Tornos was hiring. I saw the sign there, but I didn't even think of applying. I didn't even think of like getting a job there or anything. I just, to me, I thought it was like, well, to get a job there, it's probably not that easy. But I left, and then I connected with the president back then at Tornos through LinkedIn. And since I had met the guy and hadn't made a small talk, for me, LinkedIn was like the very beginning of when I had just gotten an account with them and found out what it was about. So I had very little contacts there. And I sent a request, I was like, well, I know this guy. And to my luck, he accepted it right away, and he sent me a message. And he actually remembered me. We started a conversation. He invited me to the Tornos office for an interview.
Which was nice because that was in Chicago.
Yes, exactly. It was not far from where I was at. And it happened pretty fast. I think I have never taken a job so fast with that drastic of a move. Like, I was not thinking of moving. I was not thinking of quitting my job. And I came to talk to the guy. It was not discussed as a job interview. It was just like an invitation to go to the Tornos office and to discuss potentially a job. But it was not an official thing. I went there and I sat down with the president of the company or the division of the U.S.
Was it an American or a Swiss person?
No, he was American. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They have changed the titles to who drives the U.S. Sometimes their title is president, sometimes the title is general manager, sometimes the title is I don't know how they negotiate that, but at the end of the conversation, he just bluntly made me an offer, and he said, "I want you to work for us. Here's my offer to you."
Wow. And he just saw something in you, and he's like, "All right, this guy we can train."
Yeah. I mean, I knew Swiss, and I knew Swiss in 3 different types of machines.
See, I think that probably attracted them to you because there's so many people out there that just know one thing, and they give this impression that they dislike anything else or they're afraid of it. And, obviously from my point of view of trying to sell a whole bunch of different machines, I find it, I roll my eyes at it 50% because I've never run it.
Right.
So what do I know? I agree with that. At the same time, I go, come on, you can drive a Honda and you can drive a Ford. Like
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Like, and there is still yet people that say that maybe Ford is better than Chevy, or they all take you to places. The machine doesn't make the operator. The operator makes the machine. The machinist makes the amazing things. Yes, they all have issues. They all have limitations. They all have one thing that you're not going to like about it. It's just
how and they all have something. Most of them have something special about them, particularly Tornos.
They all have something that is going to benefit. They all have something that is going to make things better. It's just a matter of what you think it's better. It's a matter of what's going to work for what you're trying to do.
So if you had, for instance, visited the Citizen booth and made a great impression on the Citizen president and had a similar thing happen, might you have gone and worked for Citizen, or was there something you saw in Tornos that was just like, this is different? I'm interested in this Tornos religion.
I think at that time I would have taken the job at Citizens as well.
Yeah.
Because I was working on Citizen machines. I was very good at it, like programming wise and manipulating the machines. I was very good at it, and
so it was a great opportunity. It wasn't like, later it seems like you discovered Tornos was your preference. It seems like that, but at that point in time, it was just like, this seems like a cool thing I want to do. This is an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that, but it seems like that for a lot of reasons. Not only because I believe that they're better machines. I think they're great machines, and they offer a lot of good benefits, and they're made thinking of the operator, the final person who's going to spend the most time in front of the machine.
You feel like Tornos are made for the operator.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
A lot of things are taught thinking of who's going to be there working on it. For example, you can say that this machine has a very small footprint, and the owner of the building is going to think, oh, I can fit this many in the building. But that has nothing to do with who's running the machine. Maybe it's too crowded in there. Maybe you can't even get your hands on it. And yet you can fit so many. But I think that it has to be a balance. Like the operator is the one that spends all the time in the machine. And I feel like Tornos puts a lot of thought into the operator.
Very interesting.
In the Deco line, all your tools get preset outside the machine. It's making it easy right there because you are not getting your hands into the machine so much. You preset your tools, you put them in.
Okay, let's back up a little. Okay. So there's a lot of people out there who run, listening to this, who run Swiss machines or run CNC lathes. The Tornos Deco, it's a bit of a different animal from my point of view. As I like to say, machine tools are kind of a religion. Tornos, I feel like, is a very specific thing. Many people say that Tornos Decos, they don't make Tornos Decos anymore. They sort of refurbish them now, Tornos does. But many people say it's the best Swiss machine built. And I know it depends on the application. So you've said one reason why you think they're great. What separates Decos from other Swiss machines? I hear things like pinch turning, things like the control, which is seems different to me. Try to define them as something different.
I think the main thing is what I just mentioned before.
Okay.
The fact that they think about you as an operator, you as the person who is spending the most time in the machine, you're the one that goes through the process of putting the tools in. I think is one of the biggest differences.
Is it just that there's so much room inside the machine? Is that part of the thing?
That and the layout of the machine. For example, you've probably seen the MultiSwiss.
Yeah.
Do you see how the door opens? You have complete access to it. Have you seen the other MultiSwiss?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's sort of the same concept, I guess, of you can really get inside the machine. You're not bumping into things.
Literally walk in the machine.
It's amazing.
The Swiss Nano, another example. I mean, how much more accessibility you want for the machine that small? I mean, the complete cabin opens.
But what about the more budget Tornos ones, like the GT or the ST? Those look a little bit more like the other ones, right?
There is no difference. There is not many differences as far as the machine itself to other brands. Actually, the most similar to Tornos is probably Zugami.
The GT one.
Yeah, at one point, Zugami was part of Tornos. They worked together, and there are some machines out there that were Tornos, but they were actually Zugami working.
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there. I don't remember what.
Yeah. So I think the most similar is that one. But other things that Tornos made a difference on those machines is the programming. Even though it's the same kind of type of programming, certain features that they put in the programming to make things easier.
You're talking about on the Decos?
On the GTs.
Oh, okay.
All the...
Yeah, I don't know. I see the Fanic and it says Tysis, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Well, the Decos is still being made. The Decos is now the Evo Deco.
Right, that's true. Which are crazy expensive.
They are. And when I work at Tornos, and even now, I refer to the other machines as the Asian machines versus the Swiss machines because they are made in Taiwan. And the Evo Decos is still made in Switzerland. So the one thing that they work really hard on the Asian side of the machines that are made in Taiwan, which is the GT, ST, I think is made in Taiwan still. Now they have the DT.
It's more simple, right?
Yeah. So I think the only way Tornos could compete to a low-cost machine was to do what they did.
Because an Evo Deco Where do those range? Like a 32 millimeter Evo Deco, you're talking 600 grand.
32, it's probably somewhere around 450.
450.
Yeah, and it changes based on how you tool up the machine. It could be less, it could be more.
And then what about an Evo Deco 10 or 20?
I think the difference between Evo Deco 20 and 32 is not much because the machine is the same. The spindles change, so you have smaller spindles. Evo Deco 10, things are different. Biggest differences are between Evo Deco 10, 16, and 20 or 32. But Evo Deco 10, I think it runs somewhere around 350.
Those are all either 9 or 10 axis. Is it Evo Deco 10 axis or 9 axis?
They're all 10 axis now.
Mm-hmm.
And more if you have the Evo Deco 16 with B axis.
Now, when they say 10 axis or 9 axis, is that including the C axis, or
No.
that's not? Okay.
No.
So it's a lot, can do more stuff than your typical Star Citizen Tsugami. I mean, they make those, but those are like the special. They really don't.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was working at Tornos, I went to a shop that had stars. I believe it was the stars. And a guy came up to me and he asked me how many axes was in the machine. And I said, it's a 10 axis. And he's like, a 10 axis for that much money? I got 11 over here. And it's much lower in price. And I got to think, I'm like, 11 axis? Really?
Is that because of the 2C axis?
Yeah. Well,
they're so misleading in that they have the 5 axis, but they call them a 7 axis. It's a bunch of BS.
So I didn't say anything. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you guys. You know, it is what it is. But I got to think. I'm like, really, 11 axis? So later during the day, I walked to him. I'm like, okay, show me the axis. Where do you have 11 axis? So he started telling me, you know, these days, and I'm like, you're counting the C axis as an axis? And he's like, yeah. Well, in that case, I got 14 over there.
Well, FYI, we had a bad experience when we sold a Deco 20. Tornos charges you to turn on the C axis. Talk about chintzy. Anyways, ridiculous. They wanted to charge 10 grand, 20 grand to turn on a C axis. I couldn't believe it. But regardless, so
I think a lot of companies do that though. It's not the only.
I've never heard of any others doing it, but it's very possible. Okay, how are you doing on time? I know we're going way over time, but I got so many other things I wanna ask you. We'll try to get to you starting the company, but then I want to ask about other things. So you're working at Tornos, you become their ace, and also we have the multi-Swiss, and you get pretty well versed in the multi-Swiss, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so for everybody who doesn't know the multi-Swiss, give everybody the multi-Swiss in a nutshell.
Well, I think if you were to marry a single spindle with a multi, you will come up with a multi-Swiss.
You mean a regular classic Swiss, or do you mean a
regular Swiss machine? Because multi-spindles were like the high volume machines. You know, you set it up and you run it for months and get millions of parts very, very fast. And the single spindle Swiss machines were made to more like a medium volume to low volume production. And the difference is that a single spindle you could set up much faster because it's only one spindle, it's only one part that you're making, and you could set it up much faster and switch from job to job. And the multi-spindles, it was always more longer setup time because there's a lot more going on.
And for the longest time, I mean, Tornos was known for great cam multi-spindles, the SAS 16s and the
Right.
BS 20s. And then they came out with a whole bunch of CNC multi-spindles. You probably have similar feelings to this. I mean, Tornos is a great company, but part of their problem is they're so innovative that they're constantly coming out with new things and then going, never mind. And they had a bunch of multi-spindles that were like this, like the Sigmas and the Alphas, and but then they came out with the multi-Swiss.